Imagine this. You've spent decades working hard, raising your children, and finally, you've entered retirement. Now, in the final chapter of life, you're faced with a choice. Should you move closer to your children for companionship, support, and security? Or will living near them introduce new challenges you might not have considered? Many of us assume that growing old means being close to family. After all, isn't that what we raised them for, to take care of us in our later years? But what if, by moving closer to our children, we risk something even more valuable than convenience and support, our independence and peace of mind? In today's video, we'll explore the potential downsides of living close to children in old age, through the lens of Buddhist philosophy and a touch of Stoic wisdom. From the loss of independence to the possibility of strained relationships, we'll uncover why this well-meaning decision may come with unexpected consequences. Family relationships and aging in Buddhists. Throughout history, family structures have played a vital role in the care and well-being of the elderly. In many cultures, including those influenced by Buddhism, it was once common for multiple generations to live under the same roof. But in Buddhist teachings, the relationship between aging and family is viewed in a unique light, one that emphasizes spiritual independence and acceptance of life's impermanence. In early Buddhist communities, aging was not seen as a reason to cling more tightly to family, but rather as an opportunity for self-reflection and spiritual growth. Monks would often retreat into solitude as they aged, focusing on mindfulness and detachment from worldly matters, including family attachments. It wasn't that family wasn't important, but the path to enlightenment was seen as an individual journey, not one dependent on close family bonds. The Buddha himself left his family to seek enlightenment, symbolizing the need for inner freedom from emotional attachments. While this doesn't mean abandoning loved ones, it highlights the importance of self-reliance and spiritual independence, especially as one nears the end of life. Three core Buddhist teachings offer insight into the challenges of living close to family in old age: interdependence, impermanence, and self-reliance. First, interdependence. In Buddhism, we recognize that all beings are interconnected, and no one exists in isolation. This means that while family relationships are important, they are not the foundation of our spiritual well-being. Relying too heavily on others, even family, can lead to suffering if we become too attached to the idea of their presence or support. Then, there is impermanence, one of the most essential Buddhist principles. Everything changes. Our bodies age, our relationships evolve, and eventually we must accept that nothing remains the same forever. The idea of permanence is an illusion, and clinging to it can bring us pain. Living close to children may feel comforting in the short term, but expecting that dynamic to remain stable can lead to disappointment. Children have their own lives, and those dynamics may shift over time. Lastly, self-reliance. In Buddhism, self-reliance isn't about physical independence alone, but also emotional and spiritual independence. It's about cultivating the inner strength to face life's transitions with grace. The Buddha taught that each individual must walk their own path to enlightenment, and this path is not necessarily easier when surrounded by family. Potential downsides of living close to children. So, what are the potential downsides of living close to children in old age? While the intention might be to provide mutual support and companionship, it can sometimes lead to unintended consequences. One of the most significant challenges is the loss of independence. Parents who move closer to their children may begin to rely on them for daily tasks, social interaction, and even emotional needs. This reliance can gradually erode their sense of autonomy, leading to frustration and a feeling of helplessness. What begins as a loving, supportive relationship can become a dynamic of dependence that both parents and children may struggle with. Next, there's the issue of strained relationships. Living in close proximity to family can bring up old patterns of behavior, unresolved conflicts, and increased emotional expectations. When parents and children live apart, there's a natural buffer that allows each party to maintain their own lives. But when they're close, these boundaries can blur, leading to increased tension. Minor disagreements can become bigger issues, and parents may feel like a burden on their children. There's also the risk of isolation despite physical proximity. Living near family doesn't always mean being included in their daily lives. Children, often juggling their own families and careers, may not have the time or energy to provide the companionship and attention their parents hoped for. This can lead to feelings of neglect and loneliness, even though they're geographically closer. Now let's turn briefly to Stoic philosophy, which offers valuable insight into aging and the importance of self-sufficiency. Like Buddhism, Stoicism teaches that peace of mind comes from within, not from external circumstances. Stoicism encourages us to cultivate emotional resilience by accepting what we cannot control. We cannot control how often our children visit, how much they help us, or how they live their lives. But we can control our reaction to these things. Stoics like Epictetus taught that we should aim for self-sufficiency and inner peace, rather than relying on others for happiness or security. Living close to children with the expectation that they'll fulfill all of our needs, be they emotional or practical, sets us up for disappointment. By cultivating inner strength, we can live more independently and harmoniously, whether or not our children are nearby. Alternative living arrangements for the elderly, for those who prefer to maintain their independence. There are many alternative living arrangements that offer both community and autonomy. Retirement communities, for example, provide opportunities for social interaction without the emotional complexities that can come with living close to family. Assisted living facilities can also provide the care and support needed as we age, while still allowing elders to retain their sense of self-sufficiency. For those in good health, living independently in one's own home, with occasional visits from family or friends, can offer the best of both worlds: autonomy, dignity, and connection. Of course, there is no need to choose between independence and connection. The Buddhist principle of the middle way teaches us to avoid extremes, whether it's isolation or dependency. We can balance our desire for closeness with family and the need for personal freedom. This might mean living independently, but near enough for occasional visits, or finding ways to maintain emotional connection without relying solely on our children for companionship or care. As we grow older, the choices we make about where and how we live are deeply personal. Buddhism teaches us that impermanence is a part of life, and that clinging to relationships, no matter how loving, can lead to suffering. By balancing our needs for connection and independence, and by cultivating self-reliance and emotional resilience, we can live more peacefully in our later years. Whether you choose to live close to your children or seek alternative living arrangements, the most important thing is to make these decisions mindfully, with full awareness of both the benefits and potential downsides. Thank you for watching, and may you find peace and contentment in whichever path you choose.